From the beautiful Missouri Ozarks, it's P.I.D. Radio. Welcome, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and once again, we are in your ears. Oh, how can you possibly stand it?
In the air everywhere.
I know we are. We've been around for 18 and a half years.
Yeah, started in March of 2005, and we are still going.
Well, not quite 18 and a half, but really close.
Yeah, and crabbier than ever. Rabbit!
And it might just become a vidcast, as they used to say.
Yeah, we found that, and this is really bizarre because I don't pretend to understand why people enjoy watching A View from the Bunker, but we're getting more traction on that program. I guess, I don't know, or the guests, but whatever. Since that program is now available on video through YouTube. Mm-hmm. And of course, through our app, which, by the way, if you don't have it, you really should, because that will protect you against us being canceled. We won't be canceled from our own app.
No, our app is maintained and created by Subsplash, which is a Christian company.
Right. And they supply the app and the Roku channel, Roku and Apple TV channel, not just for us, but for Skywatch TV, for Prophecy Watchers, for L.A. Marzulli, for Doug Hamp, Ken Johnson.
Yeah.
You name somebody that you know, and they probably have an app through Subsplash.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful ministry, because I just am astonished at the cost. It is so much more reasonable than if we were to go to try to set things up ourselves and use companies that specialize in hosting video content for major media outlets. It is a fraction of what those companies would charge. And those companies, often being very woke, will tend to look at the content. So anyway, download the app. It's at pidradio.com/app or gilberthouse.org/app, which is our global hub. As we take over the world one
bite at a time.
Yes, BYTE.
Yes.
See what she did there?
Oh, yeah, very clever.
So anyway, View from the Bunker, getting more traction as a video. A whole new category.
I know.
Yeah. People are watching it more than they're downloading the podcast, even though the podcast has been available as an audio program since 2009.
Yes,
P.I.D. Radio since 2005. But people are going to YouTube and hitting on the. Okay, fine. Mars Hill will use it. Here's
the funny thing: when you and I go to conferences, what do we hear? We listen to you all the time
on YouTube. Yeah.
So you're multitasking is what they're probably saying, is that they have us on in the background. They're listening to what we say. But why is it that, but to get back to where we started on this, when the barn is finished, which maybe a couple of months from now at the most, when the barn, and we'll give you an update after the break, but when the barn is finished, we will set up our podcast studio in there, but we might set up a camera.
Right.
It's not going to be fancy. It's not going to be any sort of
minimal post-production.
Exactly. But you'll get to see what we look like in the morning. You poor people. Yeah, I know. We'll get a lot of screams. Please stop.
My eyes.
I can't stop looking.
I need to bleach my eyes. Well, but
and this morning you're wearing a great T-shirt.
Oh, yeah. Thanks to the, as you know, last week we were not here because we were in Ohio, Brookville, Ohio. Pastor Neil Peterson and his staff at Harvest Revival Center, they're providing the work crew to make the Go Therefore conference really a success. And credit to Dr. Mike Spalding, Kathy Spalding for organizing it, bringing together a wonderful lineup of speakers. But Neil Peterson and his team behind the scenes, providing meals there in their gymnasium, which allowed people to just eat on site instead of having to go out and find a place and then come back again in time for the afternoon sessions.
And the food was pretty good.
And the food, yes, it was quite good. And very reasonably priced, and it raised money for the youth group, which is so a win-win. But we were there, and so were some of the other folks that you may be familiar with in this genre of alt.Christianity, the Camp Herman podcast. So I'm wearing their shirt this morning that says, "It is the glory of God to conceal a thing,
and the glory of kings is to search things out."
So
Proverbs 25:2.
The Dig podcast. Excuse me.
Yep.
Sorry, Justin. Your team. It was from the Dig podcast. We also do have a Camp Herman podcast from Chris and Tori.
We got lots of great T-shirts. We came back with wonderful swag, including some coffee.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Boy, Tom Dunn, Vicky Joy Anderson, and the Through the Black podcast with their dark roast coffee. They posted a wonderful little promo for the coffee on Facebook. Tom Dunn and our good friend Jeff Anderson, Vicky Joy Anderson's father, playing the role of senile old man.
Which is not him at all.
No, Jeff is sharp as a tack.
He truly is. We so love Jeff. Both Jeff and Vicky Joy. They are just a joy to have around.
And we are so blessed that they have moved and located in this area, this little community here around, in Stone County, which would include all the way to the southeast of Stone County, the team at Morningside, and Jim Baker Show and his team.
Yep.
There is quite a group gathering here in Stone County. And just across the border, we got Justin Fall, West Fall, Fall Brothers. So this little bubble here, we're a bubble inside a bubble. The United States is a bubble as far as the world goes because we do have more openly professing Christians here in the United States.
It's changing, but for now it's still relatively free.
And in fact, we can even talk about that a little bit. New statistics out from Statista, which is a company that posts various polls and things. But we know this from the Barna Group on where the direction of American faith is going, and it's not trending up. But here in Stone County and the areas around us here in the Missouri Ozarks, the Arkansas Ozarks, it's we're a bubble inside the bubble.
It's a wonderful little bubble, but at the same time, it allows us, it's like a protected wall that we're standing on, and we can see what's going on in the world. And we're trying to tell people who are on the inside of the wall, but not everybody listens.
Right.
You guys do. You're listening. So thank you.
And we truly appreciate that. And again, as the barn becomes a reality, and we'll like I said, like Sharon said, we'll give you an update after the break. We may do, our goal is to set up a space where we can do more video. We've got a couple of spaces here where we sort of managed to jury rig video spaces, but they're not really ideal.
They're not. I mean,
where we shoot Unraveling Revelation, the camera, which is an iPad, is it's basically back into our bedroom. And my podcast room, where A View from the Bunker is recorded, my camera is my iPhone, and it's not ideal. The backdrop looks okay with the TV back there, but yeah.
Yep, I know. We're going to try to really, really do it right. But as good stewards, we're trying to spend every dollar wisely.
Right.
And for that, we want to thank Dave and Barb, because they were out here doing much work yesterday, which we will tell you all about after the break.
Yes. Mention very quickly, and I'll just touch on this because it's, not really a surprise if you've been paying attention to the theological temperature of America over the past 10, 20, 50 years. Statista putting out another study showing that belief in all things supernatural, belief in God, belief in angels, belief in Satan, belief in the afterlife, has really trended down over the last 5 years.
I would disagree with that. I'd love to know how they asked their question, because belief in the spirit realm has increased.
Belief in biblical description of the afterlife.
Thank you.
Because you're right. The New Age practices and neo-pagan practices are really ramping up. And you've got very influential people on social media and in the podcast space, like Joe Rogan, openly talking about ayahuasca trips, opening the third eye with DMT. He may not call it the
Prince
third
Harry's
eye.
book, he
right.
He revels on and on about ayahuasca and how it helped him.
Yeah. Well, it's not a coincidence that people who go on those trips, more often than any other, when they encounter entities in that realm, describe seeing characters with a reptilian appearance. And it's not because we're being visited by reptilians from Zeta Reticuli. It's because apparently residents of that realm have a reptilian appearance.
Some of them do, yes.
Yeah,
and that's
the Nakash,
described in the Bible.
Exactly, yeah. Genesis chapter 3, the word translated serpent is Nakash. And as we've said elsewhere, as Mike Heiser points out in his book Reversing Hermon and elsewhere, there are places in the Old Testament, like Isaiah, where you read about, in Isaiah 14, the flying fiery serpent, the fiery serpents of Numbers chapter 31, I believe it is, where Moses has to put up the bronze serpent. Maybe it's 21. I'd have to look it up. Anyway, the word Nakash is used interchangeably with seraph, the singular of seraphim. So apparently you've got a category of spirit being that has a radiant but reptilian appearance.
It's interesting, the idea that they are burning. They're described as burning ones.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be that they have this radiant appearance that is so overwhelming that they almost appear to be on fire. Or it could be that they're dragons and they simply breathe it.
Well, yeah, flying fiery serpent would certainly fit the description of a dragon. And
Godzilla.
Yes, which we're going to talk about in an upcoming episode of Unraveling Revelation.
Yes.
What? Godzilla on End Times.
You'll
Crossing.
watch that, I think, in September.
It'll be in September, right? And I was right the second time. It's Numbers chapter 21 verse 6. Then Yahweh sent fiery serpents, sent Nachashim seraphim among the people, and they bit the people. So anyway.
By the way, if you go to Israel with us, you'll get to climb Mount Nebo with us.
Mm-hmm.
And not literally climb it. We drive most of the way, and you have a very slight incline on the sidewalk, but you will see a representation of that serpent on a pole, and I'm sorry, it's creepy looking.
It is creepy. That statue is very creepy. But you'll get a look at one of the battlegrounds, because the plains of Moab down below Mount Nebo, between Mount Nebo and Jericho, is where the incident with the young Midianite princess and the young man of Israel who did something in the sight of all Israel that caused God to send a plague and kill 24,000 people. Right
in that area where possibly Nakashim were being worshipped.
Yeah, so offering sacrifices to the dead, and the site of, not coincidentally, I think, the site of ancient Sodom.
Valley of the Shadow of Death, too.
Well,
in that region, not too far away.
Yeah.
North of there, I realize that, but... still.
You might consider the whole Jordan River. And in fact, I talked about this last weekend in Ohio as part of my presentation. And it just came to me like the night before. I was like, okay, I got to revise my... Every time I wanted to edit because we only were given 40 minutes, and I wound up cutting...
That just flew by.
It did. And I apologized afterward to Mike Spalding and Neil Peterson, because I went way beyond my 40 minutes. Every time I tried to edit my talk and cut it down, I kept adding slides. It's like,
but you asked permission, and everybody said, no, go on.
So,
because your stuff was so good.
Well, and it dovetailed so well with your presentation. It's like you set the alley-oop. So for me to hit the slam dunk was easy. I mean, God had it all set up. Psalm 22, Psalm 23, and the archaeology that we saw back in March in Israel. It all fit together, and there were people weeping during your talk as they realized what this 23rd Psalm, the Good Shepherd and the Valley of the Shadow of Death, and then showing the archaeology and the aerial drone video, thanks to Aaron Lipkin, of those sites that we saw and how it all fits together. It's like, this is not a figure of speech. This is a real place, and Jesus went there before us.
Yes, I would argue. You bring up the point that it's probably the entire Jordan River Valley.
Yeah.
It might be the entire Dead Sea transform.
Well, yes. In fact, that was the basis of my True Legends Conference virtual presentation back in 2020, that transform almost every major supernatural event in the Bible, other than, say, the Tower of Babel, maybe, Noah and the Ark, and crossing of the Red Sea. Well, no, take that back, because the Red Sea is part of the Dead Sea transform.
Isn't it, though?
Yeah. Occur on or within a few miles of that rift, that fault line, that crack in the earth. So, yeah,
and is a very deep crack in the earth, because the Dead Sea is the lowest
point on earth.
Inland body of water, yeah.
Yeah, 1,400 feet below sea level.
Yeah, that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
So why is that so deep, and what's down there?
What is down there? Just word of advice. Do not dig a big trench between the Mediterranean and the Dead Sea. That
Please
would be
don't.
really, really bad. Yeah. Anyway, so some guy did that on a beach in Florida, connect a canal to the ocean, and suddenly, like, okay.
Surprise!
Yeah. Now people on that part of the beach are totally cut off, and the police had to come and rescue them. It was not a good idea. The idea that the Jordan River is a liminal boundary separating this world from the spirit realm is an idea that's remembered even in today, as we say, crossing over Jordan.
Yes, means, going to be with Jesus.
Yeah. Gosh, when I was with the Ambassadors of Harmony barbershop chorus back in St. Louis, we sang a song called Deep River. I want to cross over into Campground. It's a spiritual from the 19th century. And that's the same idea, but I remember as we were looking up, trying to find the meaning of the word Avarim, which is the name God gave to Mount Nebo as he was calling Moses, climb this mountain of Avarim, that there's a definition in a biblical encyclopedia published about 100 years ago, before the discovery of the Ugaritic texts, so that we had more context for ancient Hebrew, that said, well, it means those on the other side, like the mountains of Moab. We're on the other side of the Jordan River. And it's like they came really, really close. And with the context of the Ugaritic texts, we understand, yeah, it does mean those on the other side, but not the mountains on the other side, the spirits on the other side.
Exactly. And it isn't only that river. There's this long memory of somehow the rivers being the liminal boundary.
Right.
Because you've got the Hoover.
Yeah.
Well, whether it's a B sound or a V sound, I'm not sure, but Huber.
Mm-hmm.
That was a major sight of the Lord coming down.
Right.
Into enemy territory and saying, this is mine.
Yeah. I mean, for us in the West, think of it as the river Styx.
Yeah.
It's an older conception of that idea.
Very much so. Yeah. Well
but
said.
that goes back, as we've discussed before, and I write about in The Second Coming of Saturn, this idea that there are supernatural entities on the other side of a body of water, which probably is a memory of the flood.
Possibly, yes.
Because the ancient Hurrians, the Horites in the Bible, had this idea that you had to go down into a ritual pit, the Abi, from which the Sumerians got the word Abzu, meaning the abyss. But in the Sumerian mind, this was the giant underwater, freshwater reservoir from which the Euphrates and the Tigris sprang.
Yeah.
And there were gods down there, Enki, who was the god of the Abzu. So it's an old concept, millennia old. I mean, it was thousands of years old by the time Jesus walked the earth. It was thousands of years old probably by the time Abraham walked the earth. It was, because archaeologists documented to at least 3,500 BC, and Abraham, if you put him at around 1800 BC, and I know there are those who say, no, that's 300 years too late. Whatever. Still more than a millennium.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very ancient concept, and that this applies to the Jordan River. It was applied to the Euphrates. And we argued that in Unraveling Revelation, that the kings of the East who crossed the Euphrates being dried up, it's not literally 200 million soldiers from China. It's spirit beings crossing over from the other side of the veil.
Which is really interesting, and then we'll go on to the next story. But in First Enoch, it says that 200 watchers came down.
Yeah.
I believe it's like Third Enoch, which, sorry, but that's not a totally reliable text.
Yeah, it was written about the 3rd century AD.
It says 200 million.
Because they had access to John's revelation by then.
Exactly, but that means they understood that these were spirits coming over.
Right.
So they were trying to justify where the 200 million would come from.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Yep. So anyway, other stories are relating to Christianity have to do with Israel. Well. You know those 5 red heifers that went over to Israel? In fact, you can probably see them if you go to Israel with us next spring, because they're in Shiloh now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're looking forward to that. That's going to be a really interesting experience. They're going to put them on display there. But interestingly enough, just this past Sunday, a Hebrew language news site, Channel 12, published an article accusing Benjamin Netanyahu of allocating government resources to the project and wanting to build a 3rd temple on the Temple Mount. And the article is blaming Christians for bringing these red heifers to Israel. Now, Channel 12, probably a secular news outlet.
Yeah.
What's interesting is, well, I was almost going to rabbit trail there. Pulled myself back from the edge.
Like we would ever do that.
Yeah.
We should
Christian
call our
ministry,
podcast The Hutch. Because we're the
yeah.
Warren.
Yeah. Well, that's it. We should, call the barn the Warren. No, people might think
we won't do that.
Warren. No. The Temple Institute, working with a Christian charity called Boneh Israel, Boneh, I'm probably mispronouncing it, worked to bring the 5 calves over last September. which means that at the age they were at the time, they'd probably be spring of 2025 before they're 3 years old and ready to be
But that's
slaughtered.
not that far away.
It is not that far away.
And we'll be there in spring of 2025.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at the calendar already. It's like, oh, we're only 7 months out from next year's tour. Yeah.
I know. So sign up soon.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If they're blaming Christians and saying somehow Christians are motivating Netanyahu, well, it's yet another reason why the secular world hates him and wants him out of office.
Yeah.
But we don't need, they're saying we want to bring on
the temple of the Antichrist is what they're calling
that
it.
is what they're saying. And that we want to, because after all that war, the Gog and Magog, they're looking at, it's a mishmash of a prophecy and trying to say that somehow the present prime minister is working with Christians over in the United States to bring it about. That's not true.
No, it is not. It is not. The source of that claim is Dr. Tomer Persico, who's a research fellow at the Shalom Hartman Institute. He's the one who claims that Christians are trying to bring about the temple of the Antichrist, which makes no sense. Christians trying to bring about the temple of the Antichrist?
No, we're not involved in that. Well,
yeah.
Let me qualify that.
Okay.
There are some Christians who support the Temple Institute and want to see a third temple built because they believe that there has to be a third temple for the
Messiah.
Well, exactly, because we get that prophecy of the sacrifices being cut off. Well, I will say again, you don't need a temple building to do that. You need a tabernacle. Right.
Which means that could be set up
at Shiloh
or at Qumran. According to Persico, the Antichrist, the Satan, one might say, he's conflating two different characters in Christian prophecy, needs to come here and defile the temple, which is true. That is prophesied in the book of Daniel. Then the war of Gog and Magog begins, in which 2/3 of the Jews die and 1/3 of them convert to Christianity. The world doesn't exactly last either. You know, such is a biblical disaster. So what he's saying is that this is something that Christians are trying to bring on in order to, we'll use a phrase that we've heard many times early on, immanentize the eschaton. Yeah, to bring about the end times. True Christians understand we don't need the third temple, but it does suggest in prophecy does suggest rather, that a third temple will be there because this Antichrist figure will put an end to the daily sacrifices and oblations and try to change the times and seasons. Now, there are those who say, well, that was fulfilled with Antiochus Epiphanes in the 2nd century BC. Okay, well, maybe. I think the other prophecies of the end times are so catastrophic that we would have noticed if they had happened 2,000 or 2,200 years ago. Yeah. Things that will, not such an earthquake has never happened before, will never happen. Okay, fine. But it is interesting that you got those who are so opposed to Benjamin Netanyahu and also apparently opposed to any proselytizing of the gospel of Jesus Christ in Israel, that they will accuse Christians of trying to bring on the temple of the Antichrist for the destruction of Jews.
Now, in a connected but very strange story, there is a singer that some of you may recognize the name. She calls herself Lizzo. It's not her real name. She is apparently popular. Don't ask me. But she is known for body positivity. She is a woman of size.
Plus size,
yeah. And honestly, she's very pretty and she's very talented. She plays the flute too, in addition to...
They allowed her to play the crystal flute of James Madison. Library of Congress brought that out and allowed her to play it.
That's really strange. But here's the stranger thing. She's being sued by some of her dancers. And there are a lot of things in the lawsuit, but one of them is that the dance coach, the head of oh gosh, what am I trying to say? The one that actually designed all of the... Choreographer, thank you very much. That she was trying to proselytize. She was trying to convert them to Christianity. Now, this is a very overtly sexual performance.
Yeah.
And I just find it really odd that was thrown in there in the mix.
That is really bizarre.
Because there are a lot of charges that have sexual connotations to them in the lawsuit. Yeah, we won't go into them, but these dancers also say that this choreographer, the captain, was trying to convert them to Christianity. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Bizarre.
Yeah. Maybe she does identify as a Christian and she was trying to convert them, but why are you remaining with this strangely sexual dance group?
Yeah. And so, some of the accusations were that Lizzo took the whole group to a...
Yeah, don't go into it. Just overtly sexual is all we have to say.
Right.
All we have to say, sorry.
Anyway.
Overtly sexual is all we have to say, please. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So very, very, very
difficult for me
strange
to talk this morning.
That this is how the enemy, and by enemy I don't mean the corporate media, I mean the principalities and powers behind the scenes, are trying to demonize, pardon the pun, Christians.
Well, and that's why, frankly, we need to pray for people people all over the world. Mm-hmm. Pray that people will come to Jesus, because he is the Savior of mankind. He died for every one of us. Mm-hmm. And there are folks that are performing out there or writing out there or talking on TV or working as politicians or whatever your particular job is. You need Jesus. And if you are in a position of, well, frankly, affecting and teaching and converting young people, as many of these musicians are, boy, wouldn't it be great if she could come out and say, I disavow all of these things I've been doing. I love Jesus. Mm-hmm. My life has been changed. And maybe some of her followers would also realize that.
Yeah, because often it goes the other way around. You find and I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but a young performer starts out singing gospel, very mm-hmm. Christian or Christianese mm-hmm. type music, and they take the golden ticket and suddenly... Yeah, and you see that male and female performers who suddenly now have literally millions of followers who are, thinking that living that way is perfectly okay with Jesus.
You and I have both been involved on a very low level with showbiz, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I have experienced, as have you, the temptation of, hey, you want to climb the ladder?
Mm-hmm.
Here's what you do, and I could see very early on, as probably you could too, the little suggestions of, we want you to change your name, we want you to do this, we may just start dressing this way, and you're going to be involved with these people, and suddenly you realize you're being led off the path.
Yeah,
you're following wolf tracks.
I had a program director once who, in the context of a discussion about my program and my approach, actually said that he thought I would be more entertaining if I had like 3 or 4 beers before I went on the air. And then in telling me about one of the guys that used to work for him at another radio station in a top 10 radio market, telling a story and clearly doing it in a way that indicated he thought it was really hilarious, that this guy had gotten caught in flagrante delicto with his girlfriend on the roof of the high-rise building in which the station was located, because they went up there to dally and got locked out on the roof of the building, spotted by a traffic helicopter from another radio station that morning. Was also known for doing lines of on the sales manager's desk. And again, the way he was telling me the story, it's like, isn't that hilarious?
No.
The thought being that, you'd be a lot more entertaining. Well, eventually I was let go because I wasn't funny enough.
Thank you, Lord.
Yeah. And
not that you weren't funny enough. I think you're very witty, but I'm glad the Lord pulled you out of that.
Well, absolutely. And I was like, what am I really in the right line of work? Mm-hmm. This was, well, I'm not going to say where I was because I don't want anybody to get in trouble. I don't know what that fellow's doing with his life these days. I lost track of him years ago.
Well, that story's being repeated over and over today.
It is. And actually, well, again, not going to identify it because I could besmirch somebody whose life may have changed since then. I don't know.
No,
but anyway, the bottom line is, I pulled back. I got to look into that lifestyle. I was like, this doesn't sound like much fun. And so, wound up getting away from that. And I'm thankful for it because I will say, I've said before that I went into that career, radio broadcasting, as many do, because of a basic insecurity. I didn't feel good about myself, being the fat kid with glasses growing up in grade school, too smart for his own good. The other kids, who were more athletic or better looking or whatever. You were never
fat. I've seen pictures of you as a kid.
Oh, I was a chunky kid. It was a big day in high school when I lost some weight and no longer had to buy jeans in the husky section at Sears.
Let's put it this way. Sizing back then was entirely different. And I'll say again, you looked fine.
Yeah, and I look back at where I was even in my 20s and thought, I thought I was fatter than that. But, it's a mental thing. It is an emotional, it's a psychological, spiritual thing.
It's spiritual. It's also that these handlers keep telling you, boy, when I was singing in bands, we had an agent who kept telling me, boy, you need to lose another 10 pounds. Mm-hmm. And I'd lose it. And he'd say, if you could just lose 5 more pounds. And I would lose it. And he'd say, you're so close. I would never have reached that goal unless I was skeletal.
Yeah.
And I was really pretty thin.
I've seen pictures of you back then. Mm-hmm. Very pretty, but yes, very, very thin.
Yeah.
Right now, you're perfect.
Oh.
No, I was watching video
awesome.
from watching conference video from last weekend thinking, boy, I am so blessed to be married to her.
By the way, I am blessed to be married to you. Just newsflash. And before we go to the break, I'll give you another news flash. 5 and 10 is back on YouTube.
Yes, this coming week. The channel's already there. No videos yet, but tell you more about that. And
let's see. Let's start taking bets. How long will it take before 5 and 10 gets kicked off? Can you beat Simply His record?
I'm thinking days rather than weeks.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Well, we're going to take a break.
More PID Radio straight ahead. Everyone learns differently, and that's why we write fiction.
It is. I find that some people love to read nonfiction, but there's something about fiction that psychologists say breaks that fourth wall. You no longer doubt what you're reading. You get so engrossed in the story that you learn. You can learn propaganda or you can learn God's truth.
Absolutely. So, yes, we write nonfiction books, but we are also using the gift of storytelling to try to teach spiritual warfare and spiritual truths. And during the months of August and September, we're offering all 10 of our novels at 20% off.
All 10 at 20% off? That's crazy.
That's right.
That is really, really a good deal. And now's the time if you want to buy gifts for birthdays or Christmas or whatever gift-giving season it is. It could even be Mother's Day next year. This is the time to save 20% on all of our fiction. And Derek's fiction is really, really good if you've never read it.
And Sharon's Red Wing Saga, 8 novels so far. She's hard at work on number 9. If you want to get engrossed in characters who are really grappling with the supernatural and trying to make sense of that world while teaching the divine counsel concepts that we try to communicate here, get involved in the Red Wing Saga. Again, all 8 of those novels, plus my 2 novels, The God Conspiracy and Iron Dragons, 20% off now only at our online store. That's gilberthouse.org/store. Welcome back to PID Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert. Boy, I'll tell you what, this world is just, we have not enough hours in the day to record programs about the things that we see in the news.
That is true. We could be commenting in real time on the news.
We
could be a one-to-one correlation, our comments versus the news items that come across.
Who knows? If we ever stop writing books, then we'll just, sit around and we'll pontificate all day long, and you'll just truly get sick of us. Well, speaking of pontificating, the barn is in progress.
Yes. Christ-powered construction began work in earnest this week. We've got they discovered as they were looking at the electric box. Okay, I don't know electricity. Okay, but when I'm looking at that panel that's been out there, the breaker panel, like that just doesn't look right to me. I mean, there's no strain relief on the wire coming into the box. I know that's wrong, but beyond that, I was out of my depth. So when Dave looked in there and said, how many amps do you need out here? Well, so we're going to put HVAC out here, and then we got to run, computers and some lights and stuff. He said, okay. Well, the gauge of wire that is feeding the box from the breaker panel in the house. So we got 200 amp service in the house, which is great. But they were only running a wire rated for 30 amps out to the barn. And that's enough to power the mini split. But he said the length that they ran that 10-gauge wire was too long. And any electricians listening to this now are going like, oh, man, fire. Yeah, that probably would have been.
Oh, but it's worse.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because they had to dig up the conduit, the PVC conduit through which the service wire ran to
the old one,
the breaker panel, the old one, because it wasn't big enough to handle the new service wire. And as soon as he nicked it with the shovel, water started gushing out of the conduit through which the wire was running.
Right. So in other words, the wire was running through water.
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute. Isn't the conduit supposed to keep the water away from it? Also protect it from, getting dug up accidentally. Yeah. Apparently it was not watertight. He thinks that they ran it outside conduit below the house and then connected to conduit underground.
There was like an elbow or something that wasn't.
Yeah. And it was catching water and funneling it into the PVC. So anyway, that's been repaired.
We've thanked the Lord many, many times for protecting foolish people.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. Had no clue. All I knew is that, okay, this is not looking right. So when you're going to run the separate 30 amp circuit for the HVAC system we need to install, can you please replace that breaker panel out there? And as he was looking at it, said, okay, the wiring is not sufficient, so we're going to dig up the conduit, replace that. Oh, look, the conduit is gushing water. Now, bear in mind the water table where we are, because we're on top of a ridge. Mm-hmm. The water table is down about 325 feet. That's where our well hits water. We've got a 600-foot well.
Yes, so this had to have come from rain or something.
Yes.
Now, mind you, we put gutters on the house because there were no gutters. We put downspouts because there were no downspouts.
Right.
So we have no idea at what point water got into that.
True. By the way, he also found a French drain.
Oh.
We had no idea there's a French drain around the house. You know, along the back wall where you see that black corrugated tube?
Yeah.
French drain. But he said the French drain that's running underneath where the driveway is now, he said it's totally worthless because it's all full of mud. So they just cut it and pulled it out because he needed to run the conduit up there. So, well, that's perfectly fine because...
My goodness.
Yeah, dirt was probably stuffed in there by Ned the groundhog.
Oh, yeah.
Ned. Yeah, well, he's going to find that Dave is going to fill his hole with concrete.
Yeah, that will really, really make him mad.
Cheesed.
I know. He's going to start sending his hate letters.
The bottom line here is this. The electric now it's not connected to the box in the house yet. That's going to take place this coming week. But the line is run out there, and so progress is being made.
They worked really, really hard.
Oh, my goodness. It was like 95 degrees, sunny, heat index of 107, and they were out there shoveling away.
Digging rocks.
Yeah.
Because we essentially have grass on rocks.
Right. But because Sharon was observant and thinking outside the box and not linear like us guys, Dave was following the path of the original conduit, which connects at the front of the garage instead of on the back wall of the garage, next to the
So it would have had to go under doors. The driveway, under the garage.
Would have had to go under the fence.
Oh, that's right.
Go under the fence. And would have involved like 20 to 25 foot more digging instead of just taking it to the corner of the garage next to the garage door.
Which was what, 12 feet maybe?
Yeah, well, about 20 feet. They would have had about 40 foot of digging if they'd had to go to the other place. Anyway, said to Dave, so Dave, can you just connect it here and then run the service cable up inside the garage and over the rafters? Well, I could, but, then you'd have that thing seeing, then you could say, it's a garage, Dave. We got wires all over it, up in the rafters.
Have you noticed that? They're all over the place?
So anyway, Dave and Barb were grateful that Sharon pointed that out and said, here, connect over here 20 foot closer to the barn instead of all the way over. Don't follow the old one. Don't dig underneath the fence.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and it took me a little bit to explain to you over and over what it was that I mentioned. And then when you told Dave about it, I
told Dave. So, well, Dave, it occurs to me that maybe, no, wait. Realizing that the Lord is watching is like, well, actually, no, Sharon thought of this. And,
because men tend to be linear thinkers.
And Dave said, well, yeah, I guess that would save us a lot of digging. I said, yeah. Sharon said that she tends to think outside the box, not as linear as you and me. And then Barb, of course, doubled over laughing.
I know, that was the part. Barb laughed so hard. I loved it. But anyway, they worked really hard. And we are able to pay them because you guys have been so, so generous to support Build Barn Better. So thank you. If you've already donated, boy, thank you many, many times over. But if you... For whatever reason, if the Lord says, want you to give $1 or $2 to the Gilberts to help build Barn Better, you can go to gilberthouse.org PID.org/donate,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is right there.
There's also a red donate button at PIDradio.com. So either way, and thank you. Thank you for making this possible.
So much. Thank you.
And again, we're blessed that we're able to give the work to Christ-powered construction.
I know. Right now, all of the companies that we've dealt with, they've talked about Jesus and prophecy and all this kind of stuff while they're here. It's like, Lord, thank you.
Yeah, it is really amazing.
And thank you for protecting us when we didn't know that we needed to be protected from water all around a wire.
Well, and we told this story before. Dave, when we had him run a conduit, like a metal,
an exhaust from our dryer.
Exhaust from the dryer, right? A solid metal exhaust vent.
So it could be cleaned.
To replace the corrugated vinyl tube with you stretch it out and you put it in place, but it catches the lint in there instead of
try to clean it, it breaks.
We didn't realize, and Dave discovered this when he opened up the wall to connect the aluminum tube, that the corrugated tube had pulled away from the dryer and it was blowing lint into the space between the walls.
It pulled away from the outside. It was connected to the dryer. It never exhausted to the outside. All of the lint was going in behind the fireplace, and it all showed burn marks.
Right. Yeah, it was blowing into the space between the walls, and on the other side of that wall from the dryer is the fireplace. So praise God that didn't catch. So Dave fixed that a couple of years ago, and so
I'm thinking those of you who are praying for us, it's working.
It is working.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So that boy in the news. I've got to talk about this. We were discussing the fact that prophetic things are going on. There are those even in Israel that are looking at it and they're blaming the Christians for this or that, whatever. But we also see prophetic things happening in the financial world, that there are people across the Western world and probably in China too, because everything's connected there, that are being debanked.
Yeah. We've got a few things to talk about related to finance. So Nigel Farage, who was really the main driver of the Brexit movement a few years ago. Boris Johnson kind of picked up that flag and picked up the football, carried it across the line. Yeah, well, not football in the UK sense, but American real football.
Yeah, picked up the torch,
carried it, and Farage found out just a few weeks ago that he had been debanked by his bank, Coutts, Coutts, which is a division of NatWest,
which used to be Royal Bank of Scotland.
Which was bailed out by the UK after the 2009 subprime mortgage crisis. So the government of Great Britain, the government of the United Kingdom, owns what, 38.7?
I think it's 39%, about 39%.
Yeah. So they have better than a 1/3 stake in that bank, and yet Farage was told, sorry, your business is no longer wanted, and we're closing your accounts. You've got so many days to get your money into another bank. Well, all right, fine. You say, just go to another bank, and if they don't want my money, I'll take it elsewhere. But then he went to 9 other banks and found that all 9 of those also said, no, we don't want your money either. So what is going on there? That sounds like collusion to me. Now, the UK's got some strange laws, what they call politically exposed persons. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago.
We did.
But the bottom line is, the drive is also, there is also a drive in the Western world to eliminate cash. Well, not all over the world, because China has also instituted a digital yuan, and they're looking at launching a digital currency, gold-backed currency for the BRICS nations at their meeting later this month. So this is a way of pushing us into a financial system, an economic system that requires us to be banked, but if they decide that you are not an approved person, you are excluded from that system. And if cash is eliminated and you must go through a central bank digital currency and they exclude you from the system, boy, you're really in a world of hurt.
You really are. And one of the reasons that there were 40 pages given to Nigel Farage as to why he was debanked. And a lot of it had to do with his political and personal opinions that he expressed in many venues. And one of the things I find interesting is that there's an organization over in England that is called the FCA that stands for, if I can pull this up again, Financial Conduct Authority. And it has nothing to do with the conduct of the banks. It's everything to, well, in a way it does. The banks are being told, much like private corporations, that you must be ESG, and that's equitable, social, and governance. Mm-hmm. And they also must be climate friendly. They have to be LGBTQ, whatever it is, plus friendly. They have to promote all of these very marginal ideas.
Mm-hmm. The E, by the way, is environmental.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I thought climate was in there somewhere. That you have to promote these ideas, and if you have a customer that stands against it, then you essentially have to marginalize them.
Right.
As in debanking them. But there is a movement now countering this because Farage, thank you, Nigel, has really brought this into the sunlight, and a lot of individuals are realizing, hold on, I got debanked too. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should do something about this. So the government is investigating it.
Yeah.
And whether or not having a bank should be a right.
Mm-hmm.
Not just an option, but a right. And that is a little chilling when you think about it. On the surface, that sounds great because it's very difficult to buy and sell without a bank account.
It is. And it's been pushed on us incrementally. Mm-hmm. We found this out after around 2007. We got rid of our credit cards and went to debit cards. And so we lived without a credit card for years until we started traveling to conferences. And then we found that when you try to check into a hotel with a debit card, there are places that will not accept the debit card to cover incidentals. So we had to get a credit card because I guess there's so much fraud with debit cards.
That's what they were saying, that it was a subject of fraud. So yeah, it was Colorado and Texas at the time. It probably is more states.
Right. And there are places in the world, like when we traveled to Israel, it's like, well, can't use your debit card in Jordan. We could use our debit card to get shekels from ATMs in Israel, but they would not allow
They denied it.
Yeah, in Jordan, it wouldn't work. So we found that to be true beginning about 10 years ago, where we had to get a credit card again, and we keep it paid off. Rack up a lot of points on it, though. We got a free TV on it.
I know. Get something else. We got a lot of points.
Yeah.
Get something for the barn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good monitor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anyway, when you then turn that screw slightly, just a little bit more each year, it's like, okay, try renting a car without a credit card. But then if you say, okay, cash is no longer allowed. I mean, when you go to get the car, you can actually you could at least pay for it with cash, but they at least want a credit card on file in case the car gets damaged or you return it with an empty tank of gas or whatever. They can charge you for it right away. But if they go to a central bank digital currency, which is like taking blockchain and putting it under government control, then they have it's not really a currency, it's a control mechanism. Mm-hmm. And this is the word of a fellow who's a very well-respected economist who was interviewed recently, and I forget where it was. I talked about it on 5 and 10 this past week, but and I'm forgetting his name. Very well-respected economist who described a central bank digital currency not as a currency, but as a control mechanism because it could be programmed to only work on approved products with approved vendors or within an approved geographic area. So if they want to eventually herd us all into these 15-minute cities that the World Economic Forum writes about, where we all live in an area where we can just walk everywhere because, vehicles, carbon, climate, all of that stuff. You have to live within 15 minutes walk of everything you need. You can do your shopping, bring a little cart with you, like we used to do back in Chicago, a little cart that we'd walk up to the corner grocery and bring it back home. If you try to use your card, your central bank digital currency outside that zone, you'll find that it won't work.
Oh, yeah.
If you are driving take this a step further. If we're all on electric vehicles that are internet connected, most of new vehicles are already internet connected through.
At the very least, through your phone, exactly.
Right, or through your phone. But when you've got most modern vehicles, because you've got these entertainment systems now that connect to GPS,
they know where you are.
Yeah, police can access your vehicle remotely and shut it down.
Yes.
You're outside your approved zone.
Or here's a crazy thing. The maker of the automobile or the maker of various parts within it, China, can shut you down.
Right. Not to mention the fact that they're sharing all kinds of information.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that documentary, what was it? Surveillance Capitalism.
Oh, yes.
The documentary, Surveillance Capitalism.
That's so good.
The automakers are making a lot of money from data brokers by connecting your vehicle to all kinds of, where have you traveled?
Mm-hmm.
When did you go there? All of this information connected together, if it's linked to a central bank digital currency, can really be used to control your lives, which is why in the UK they've got the don't kill cash movement.
Yes. Well, guess where I am right now on the interwebs? I'm looking at federalreserve.gov. And they're frequently asked questions about CBDC, the Central Bank Digital Currency. Question number 2. Will a U.S. CBDC, which they are trialing right now in a few banks, will a U.S. CBDC replace cash or paper currency? The answer, which sounds very vague but reassuring, is why the Federal Reserve is committed to ensuring the continued safety and availability, and availability of cash, and is considering a CBDC as a means to expand safe payment options, not reduce or replace them.
Yeah. Pay no attention to the camel's nose under the tent.
Exactly. I mean, you have to put a link to these FAQs at Federal Reserve. It's hilarious.
I will so do. Yeah. It's their way of introducing the idea. They realized that blockchain is not going away.
Just sent it to you.
And thank you, sweetheart.
You're welcome.
And so they need to control it. Because they've realized, wait a minute, we can use this. We can program this. This relates to the interview I did with Guy Malone a couple of years ago for the Skywatch TV virtual conference, where he talked about Bitcoin not being the mark of the beast, but a central bank digital currency could very well be.
Well, and it's coming up in March of this year. A press release came out from federalreserve.gov talking about CBDC's FedNow pilot program.
Now, FedNow, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, is not a CBDC. It is a payment processing system that's supposed to be
setting it up,
but it's setting the infrastructure.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Well, that's being trialed in the United States. I love this. One of the articles: FedNow will save the U.S. from a CBDC. No, it won't.
It's greasing the slippery slope.
Of course,
it's making it slipperier.
Banana peels deployed. They're cute little banana peels. Everybody loves banana peels, don't they?
Who doesn't
They're
love
appealing.
bananas?
Oh, yeah. Look at all the potassium sliding in.
Oh, yeah. Well, while this is going on, and as they're telling us this is all for our own good, and as BlackRock and other asset management firms are guiding our corporations into all of these ESG. What was the other one? Is CEI, Corporate Equity Index, I think.
I think you're right.
A similar thing. It's a subset of ESG. And they're compelling corporations to do this. Like Anheuser-Busch. Okay. And the reason they did what they did, not because they thought blue-collar Bud Light drinkers would actually appreciate what they did, but that, hey, look, we've got $10 trillion in assets under management. If you want us to invest in your company, Anheuser-Busch or AB InBev, you will play ball. And thanks to Governor Ron DeSantis, think what you will of him, the fact that he's called so much attention to it has caused the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, to say, and that is his name, isn't it?
I think so.
I'm not confusing him with another guy, am I?
No, it sounds right.
Larry Fink, American billionaire. Yeah, CEO of BlackRock. Okay, I got that right. Larry Fink to drop the term ESG because it's been poisoned. It doesn't mean they're going to stop doing it. It's just
been revealed. It's just like World Economic Forum has. Oh, we can't do the Build Back Better.
Great Reset. Build Back Better. Yeah, we got to do something. The Gilberts have taken it and twisted it into Build Barn Better. No. Anyway, a congressional committee is now investigating BlackRock because apparently they're facilitating investments into Chinese companies that have been blacklisted by the U.S. government.
Yes, I tweeted that a few days ago.
Right.
That is so typical, because you will hear these organizations say, do this, and in the meantime, they're doing the opposite.
Exactly.
It reminds me, all of these, if you're getting confused listening to this and thinking, okay, all of BlackRock and Blackstone, there is actually a Blackstone. It's in the Red Wing Saga, but this is a different.
Right.
Yeah, I was surprised to see, because when I looked it up originally, I found nothing, and I thought, okay, I'll go ahead and use Blackstone. But yeah, there is one. But all of these various organizations that are pulling at puppet strings, think about, marionette strings, but operating puppets. Think about what I use as the demonstration for the entities in the spirit realm. You will have all of these names and behaviors. Are they the same entity or not? Because they see. Well, here we are back again. Believe it or not, when I was talking about those puppets on the hands with the spirit realm, our electricity went off.
Yeah, there was a lightning flash outside. We got a wave of storms coming in, a line of storms coming in from the west. And,
so we suddenly lost everything, and Derek and I looked at each other and said, because we'd nearly done an hour.
Yeah. Thankfully, Adobe Audition saves the file as it's going. So
thank you, my Lord, because that could easily have been lost. Not that we couldn't have redone it. I mean, it's just. Yeah.
Sadly, this is a lesson. There is a battery backup on the other computer sitting on this desk, the one I use to edit the 5 and 10 updates.
How many computers do you have?
Not enough. Need more. But yeah, this one obviously needs to be. This is we're recording this on an old iMac, 2013 vintage.
We use our Macs for a long, long time. That's why you pay a little more for them up front. We try to buy them when they're on special, but they do last forever. Right.
So this one's still fine, enough power to process the audio that we record every week, but I don't have it connected to the battery backup. If I had that connected,
get one.
Yes. Just because but thankfully Adobe Audition saved the file. So
thank you, Adobe. Yeah. Well, then thank you, Lord, most of all, because once again, you have protected us when we didn't know we were going to need protection. The storm is coming through, and we are very grateful for the rain. Yep. But boy, speaking of storms, there's a spiritual storm coming, and we're starting to see those early signs of it. When you look and you see darkness off to the south or the north or the east, whatever direction you see darkness coming, we see darkness coming. Yeah. And there are those who preach the opposite. They say, no, it's getting really good. It's going to be better. It's getting better. I wish that were true, but I don't see that coming. We may have a period of suddenly it's, great and everything is just going our way, but that's not what prophecy tells us is going to happen.
I agree with you. And I know that we've got friends who we respect.
We do, and we love them.
Who are looking for a revival and expect a revival to come.
We will see one. Because when you have great persecution, then great revival breaks out.
Well, that's true. That's true. The early Christian church survived the persecution of the Sanhedrin and the Roman Empire.
They grew.
And grew. And that kind of pressure will turn people to question, what is my worldview based? And when all of your physical crutches are kicked out.
That's a good way to put it.
Financial
all your
distractions, all your worldly goods are gone. That's when you're left with nothing but God. And so that may be what comes. It won't be easy, but there may be an end times revival caused by that persecution.
Right.
But yes, the world as a whole will get darker and darker as the enemy, I think, sees that the time is now. We look back over the last 10 years. I know you've suggested in the past, I think you're right, that even though we didn't see the Mayan apocalypse on the winter solstice of 2012, that things just seem to shift into overdrive.
Yeah, I think something happened about that time, spiritually speaking. As we're talking about, and we're going to be wrapping this up soon because, again, probably
Storm
more lightning coming.
More lightning,
As we're talking about various persecutions and pressure coming, we know that some of you are going through that right now. You're thinking, this isn't future for me. This is coming on me right now. And you may be living right here in the United States. You may be living elsewhere in the world. Whatever is going on in your life right now, you're wondering, does God love me? Why is God allowing this? The truth is that each one of us have free will choices, but sometimes things come upon us that we did not choose.
Right.
And if the Lord is allowing that, just to remember, He knows you can take it. Even though right now you're thinking, I can't take this.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord is toughening you up. He is turning you to Him. Please don't turn away just because you're going through trials. Don't say, I've had it, because you may be so close to the breakthrough. You may be so close to the end of this particular storm. The sun may be getting ready to come out, and because you don't see it yet and you're so weary, you may be tempted to just walk away. Please don't do that.
I think there's actually a couple of very encouraging interviews that I've had recently on A View from the Bunker with Barbara Joan Briggs, whose book Renewal of the Heart and Mind. I don't think that's the exact title, but anyway, you can find it there, vftb.net, or go to our app and look under the View from the Bunker section.
Go to the app.
Barbara Joan Briggs, who had her children taken away by the state in Arizona, and since recovered them, was very near self-harm through and was deep into drug abuse, and was turning to all the wrong sources like the New Age movement, channeling, psychics, mediums, looking for answers, and finally, in desperation, cried out to Jesus Christ and was led to the Lord, and has now a sound mind, is a productive person, had a very successful career as a realtor, and that was very encouraging. And also the recent interview with, and the second interview I've done with Michael Gagliardi, whose book, Devil Take the Hindmost, is an account of his childhood as the son of a woman who was demonically possessed. I mean, imagine as a child, 8, 9 years old, having to block your door at night so that your mother wouldn't come in because you were afraid she would do something to you. Hearing her speak in masculine voices and arguing with herself, different voices arguing within herself, sort of like the Gerasene demoniac.
Yeah, boy.
So anyway,
a child shouldn't have to go through that. But
no.
Children do. Children are being abused all over the world, and that's another darkness,
right? Another
storm that we all see going on, and we feel helpless because of it. But the Lord truly has won the victory.
Yes,
and that the obvious nature of that victory is coming soon, very, very soon. But I'm saying all this because Derek and I want to pray for you, and we pray for you every day, whether we know your situation or not, because the Lord knows your situation, and so I rely upon that. But if there's something specific you want to let us know about and you want us to specifically pray for that, then send us an email or send us a letter. The old snail mail USPS. Yeah. You can send that to Gilbert House, 2 words, Gilbert House, P.O. Box 78, Crane, C-R-A-N-E, Missouri 65633. That's Gilbert House, P.O. Box 78, Crane, Missouri 65633. And we want to put all of those very personal prayer requests on a prayer board in our barn. And no one else will see it. Yeah, we'll make sure that we keep it covered when guests come in. But if you want others to pray for you, then we will be having prayer meetings there. And when we have those prayer meetings with trusted fellow warriors like the Andersons, Jeff and Vicki Joy Anderson. Vicki Anderson is a warrior, as is Jeff.
Yep.
And bring them in to pray, then we will pray for you. So if you're interested in sharing those specific prayer requests with us, please let us know. Yeah. And if they email them, where can they send them?
Send them to info@gilberthouse.org. info@gilberthouse.org.
There you go.
And we will, again, these will be confidential. We're not going to broadcast this. We're not going to put it out on a podcast or a video or anything like that.
Never do that. We would never do that.
We're not using this to try to say, hey, look at us. We're such prayer. No, this is just between us.
Yeah. And, you can also go to the conversations section on our app.
There's a prayer request section in our app. So if you've got our app, which is available, gilberthouse.org/app, PIDradio.com/app, go to the messaging section. There's a little talk balloons at the top right corner when you're looking at it on your phone or tablet. And that does not go out on the internet. It's self-contained within the app. So we can pray for one another. We're seeing a lot of that going on. People who are establishing friendships through the app, which is really a blessing to see. And again, it's not out there on the internet, so it is a trusted group of people who are just crazy in the same way we are. So,
by the way, we do want to remind you that we're going to go back to Israel in the spring of 2024 and again in 2025. March of next year, 2024, Timothy Alberino is our guest.
And he's my guest on A View from the Bunker tomorrow night.
Perfect.
And we'll be talking about the giants' tombs of Sardinia, but more than that, the connections between Sardinia and ancient Canaan.
What?
Yeah, showing some video of the places that we saw back in 2018 in Sardinia, but also a few clips from our recent Israel tour, especially El Ahwat.
I was going to say, wait until he sees that place.
Yeah, he'll be very excited about that.
That and many others.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Tim's never been to Israel.
So an opportunity to hear from a modern-day Indiana Jones, Timothy Alberino, sort of a rolling tour through the Holy Land, and we've got room for you to join us. GilbertsInIsrael.com is the website to go to for information and to reserve your spot. GilbertsInIsrael.
And by the way, when every year Aaron sets up a Facebook group, Aaron Lipkin of Lipkin Tours, he sets up a Facebook group specifically for that year's tour group. And I'll tell you what, those groups, they hang together and they form a family and they pray for one another.
Yeah. The group that just went over back in March, they've been holding regular Zoom meetings.
Don't you love that?
Yeah. And they're looking at a schedule now, monthly schedule. They've been doing it weekly for a while. And as we've gotten busy and things, there was a stretch there where I was doing interviews on other programs, it seemed, every week when the Zoom meeting was scheduled. But the fact that they're still connecting, and the Facebook group, which is turned out to be almost a prayer group as well, like the one on our app, is really amazing. It can be a life-changing experience, not just because of what you see in Israel, but because of the friendships that you establish on the tour.
Yeah, it is so incredible. So plan to join us, GilbertsInIsrael.com. Boy, that's can't speak.
And if the Lord allows, we would love to see, while we're still healthy enough to do it, some other places where we think the spiritual war has taken place.
You and I are going to Turkey next year by ourselves.
Yeah,
we're not
this is
leading
just
a
the
tour.
two of us. We're just doing a little sightseeing on our own, scouting out for a possible future tour of Turkey. As you know, we've tried to organize it, and COVID kind of got in the way, and then the earthquake kind of put things off. But we're going to go visit Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe next year. Also Haran, Abraham's hometown, but also in Istanbul, the cistern, the Basilica Cistern.
Yes, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So I saw
fascinating
documentary
stuff.
on it. Oh, so good. So we're going to see those things. We're going to check out what it's like to be in Turkey, and then we will know more when we lead you there in the future. But we also want to go at some point to Malta. I would love to go to southern Spain because there are lots of dolmens there. So essentially, we love archaeology.
Love to see the Minoan sites on Crete.
Yeah.
Or is it Cyprus? I keep forgetting where the Minoans were.
I like to go to Egypt.
Yeah. Trey Smith has had some interesting adventures in Egypt.
We're not going to say that we know Trey Smith when we're there because they didn't want to let him leave
don't know
there
that
for
guy.
a while.
He's crazy.
He is crazy. But join us in Israel. We would love that. And boy, in the meantime.
Yes, till tomorrow night. And then, of course, our Bible study tomorrow morning, the Gilbert House Fellowship. Until then, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert. Bye-bye, everybody.
P.I.D. Radio is an outreach of Gilbert House Ministries, released under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, PIDradio.com, Twitter @PIDradio, or by downloading our free app, PIDradio.com/app, or GilbertHouse.org/app. Join us each week for our Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship.